Hi everyone, and welcome to the Inclusive Recruiting Candidate Network webinar, bringing your authentic self to work. How are you all? I hope you're all well. It's great to have you all here today. We have had a fantastic response to this webinar, so I'm really pleased that you can make it. Before we start, just some housekeeping. Please keep your microphone on mute until the Q&A session at the end. This webinar is being recorded and will be used on our website and shared with you via email with some resources. Please feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself and tell us why you're here today. And let's just start with some introductions and then we'll get started with the session. I am Halim Latif, the Candidate Network Manager at Inclusive Recruiting. We work with progressive organizations that are actively trying to become inclusive in the workplace. We provide recruitment, training, and equity, diversity, and inclusion consultancy services to our clients. I would like to take a moment to highlight the reason for why we are here. We recognize that the workplace, and in particular leadership teams, need more representation of diverse talent. Hence, we have created the Inclusive Recruiting Network to bring you events such as this one, resources, and support such as mentoring programs to help you in your career. If you'd like to be part of our network, I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. Today we have Andreena Leeanne here with us. She will be presenting this session. Really excited to have her here with us. And just a short introduction to Andreena before she introduces herself. Andreena is a lived experience speaker, self-care workshop facilitator, poet and author. Thank you, Andreena, for being here today. It's a real pleasure having you with us. And with that being said, you can take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Halima. Thank you for inviting me to speak and share my lived experience here today. So this presentation is called Bringing Your Authentic Self to Work, and I'll be sharing my lived experience with you. So just a quick introduction into who I am. So I'm a published author. My book, Charred, A Survivor Speaks Her Truth to Inspire, was published by Team Angelica in 2020 and shortlisted for a Polari First Book Prize in 2021. So I'm also a lived experience speaker. What that actually means is that I get paid to share my lived experience with various aspects in my life, you know. So I talk to organizations about microaggressions that I've experienced, and it's more to let organizations just hear about lived experience from a different perspective, and organizations that have an inclusive policy just fare better for their employees. I'm also a writing workshop facilitator, so I've created writing workshops on self-care, and that's to help people to create self-care practices that are suitable for them to be able to recognize periods of stress, avoid burnout, and actually just enjoy their life a bit more. You know, and also to spread the message that self-care is not selfish at all. I'm also the founder of Poetry LGBT Open Mic Night for the LGBT community to come together and just express themselves and be creative. That started in January 2015 and happens on the first Sunday of every month. In 2018, I was Stonewall's Black History Month role model. In 2020, I was shortlisted for a National Diversity Award for Positive LGBT Role Model. And in 2021, I became the trustee of a charity that focuses on violence against women and girls, because that's also an area where I share my lived experience as well. So I'll just go through the objectives of this presentation. So we'll talk about what does it mean to be authentic? We'll look at values and why they're important. We'll look at the benefits of being authentic at work. I will share a poem from my book, Chard. It's called Proud with Pride. We'll look at some tips to being authentic at work, and we'll have a Q&A as well. So I would like to encourage, I will ask a few questions throughout this talk, and I would like to encourage you to just take part in the chat. I try to create welcoming spaces where people can also be their authentic selves. So to talk about my lived experience, I'll just give you a little timeline of my work experience. So in 1997, I left school with no qualifications. In fact, the reason why I left school with no qualifications is because I had to deal with so much trauma in my life that I wasn't able to, in my early years, that I wasn't able to focus on school. So school was very difficult for me. I then went on to work in various retail jobs, and then I found myself doing some admin in the NHS. And it was at this point where I was doing some admin, booking some dental work, dental patients in the NHS. And I saw an opportunity where I could actually increase my pay and skills significantly. So what had happened was I saw an opportunity where I could create a referral pathway with the Stop Smoking service from the dental service. Yeah, so I used some networking skills, admin skills, and all sorts to be able to bridge that gap, to be able to bring more smokers into the Stop Smoking service, because at the time smoking prevalence was high. A lot of people who had dental problems also smoked, and it was their smoking that was often the cause of their dental problems. So that referral pathway meant that more people were able to access the Stop Smoking service, and that's how I managed to increase my pay band significantly. So at the time when I was band 2, it was around 18 grand a year. By the time, you know, a few years later, when I implemented that initiative and became a band 7, because I also trained as a Stop Smoking advisor to help people, because they also needed an extra pair of hands, because they had so many people come through the service that I used that as my opportunity to be able to retrain, jump ship, and gain experience in that field. And it also increased my pay packet. I think when I left that job, I was on 44 grand a year, which is quite good for somebody who left school with no qualifications. And I share that with you because part of my lived experience about talking about what it was like being at that level in the NHS, at band 7 level, and experiencing microaggressions and so many things, and having challenges where there were times where I couldn't be my authentic self, and it was really challenging. I also share that with you as well to let you know that the path to success isn't a straight line, and sometimes we have to take risks to achieve some of the things that we want to achieve. And in 2018, smoking prevalence by that time had gone down in the UK, and lots of people stopped smoking. Young people were no longer taking up smoking. Young people nowadays are more into yoga and well-being and healthier lifestyles. So smoking prevalence went down. The smoking cessation service wasn't needed anymore. And under Agenda for Change rules, you can only go down one pay band. So they couldn't find me something at band 7 level. So they found me an occupational health business manager role in the NHS, and I was there for a year. And it was in that role that I really I really embraced being my authentic self, and we'll talk about that a little later in this presentation. And I'm fully my authentic self now because I left that job 3 months before the pandemic to embark on a journey of self-employment, and which is where I am now, sharing my lived experience and delivering writing workshops and things like that. So I just thought I would give you a quick whistle-stop tour into my 20 years of employment history, and yeah, just give you those 2 pointers that, you know, taking risks is important, authenticity is important. So before we actually go on to talking about authenticity, I would like you to share in the chat, what does authenticity mean to you? What does authenticity mean to you? You can type as little or as much as you like. I'll just give you a minute to do that. Yeah, being true to your values, being my real self without reservation. Yes, excellent. Thank you so much for contributing to this. Not pretending to be someone that you're not, no code switching, being you 100%. Yes, definitely. All of those, being genuine, being able to uphold your boundaries and being true to yourself without compromising my beliefs. Yeah. Being able to be the parts of myself I want in that setting. Yeah. Excellent. Not pretending to be someone else because of fear of rejection. We'll talk about that later on as well. Being proud of who you are and living it. Yes, 100%. Staying true to your values. Not overthinking every single action. Lots going on in the chat there. You do all have the gist of being authentic. You're all saying exactly the right things. Not being afraid to express yourself in a way that feels most confident and happy. Yeah, definitely. Not feeling that you need to hide aspects of yourself from others. Yes, all of that. All of that. Thank you so much for contributing in the chat there. So what does it mean to be authentic? You've already listed loads and loads of those. Oops, we're skipping ahead there. Just gonna move this box over there. Right, okay. What does it mean to be authentic? Authenticity means having a keen awareness of who you are and what you stand for, and expressing yourself honestly and consistently to the world. You know, that's the summary of authenticity, but it also means all of that stuff that you just wrote in the chat as well. Brene Brown, who you can see in the photo there, she said, in order for connection to happen, we have to allow ourselves to be seen, really seen. She also said as well that to get to authenticity, you have to show some vulnerability. And lots of people find it difficult to show vulnerability and be their authentic selves for various reasons. So we can't talk about authenticity really without talking about values. But before we go into values, being authentic is being unapologetically who you are and showing up as yourself. And there are so many benefits to being yourself at work, which we'll talk about later as well. So values, what are values? Because we can't talk about authenticity without talking about values. So values are the principles that we live by, standards of behavior. It defines what is important to us via our life experiences, whether it's work or personal. We all have values that are close to us. And I think if I didn't align my values with like who I am, I don't think I'd be the person I am today. Values guide our behavior, thoughts, our decisions. It keeps us focused. It's what we need to know and understand to help us find that perfect job or workplace. It's difficult to find a job sometimes, but what I do when I look for a job, I always, when I look for organizations that I want to work with, I always check out their website. I always check to see whether their values align with mine. You know, values help us create the future we want, because knowing what we want, knowing what we want out of life is the first step to getting it. And we'll talk about that later. So before we get on to that, so sorry about this, 1 second. Our values are key to being happy at work. And before we get on to that, I'd like you to type in the chat as well. What do you think happens when your values aligns with your organization's values? Type in the chat. What do you think happens when your values align with the organization's values? Yes, you can be more easily fulfilled through your work. Yes, you feel more comfortable with where you work. Exactly. You work more collaboratively and things get done. You feel you belong. Better productivity and motivation for staff, better staff retention. Yeah. Overperformance, yeah. The workplace becomes more comfortable to step in. Definitely. Better productivity, better mental health, better relationships. Yes, all of those. You're probably bringing out the best of your abilities. Someone else has wrote in the chat. It leads to a happier working environment because you're both on the same page. Yeah, you feel comfortable in the workplace. It's fulfilling, satisfying. You're productive, engaged, and well-being needs are met. Yeah, definitely. All of those things are what you mentioned. All of those things, what you mentioned, because happiness and satisfaction is the key to authenticity at work. You know, once you're being your true self, then, and you're not hiding parts of who you are, it will bring you happiness and satisfaction. You will look forward to going to work. You know, when the alarm goes off in the morning, you'll be springing out of bed, looking forward to going in. All of those things that you said, you'd be more productive. You know, when it's asked of you to do more, you don't mind. You don't mind because you feel valued. You will inspire trust with others. Yeah, definitely. People like people who are confident. People like people who are real, you know, and honest. Authenticity also comes with being honest. You'll feel more confident within yourself. People are attracted to confident people. You know, you'll inspire others to be more authentic when you're yourself. And someone else said in the chat there as well, increased productivity. And organizations have caught on to that. Organizations used to really think about their bottom line. They used to think about profits and and targets and things like that. And they still do. Organizations still obviously think about targets and things, but they have recognized that if they create more inclusive spaces and they encourage people to be their authentic selves, then staff are more productive anyway. They're happier at work. It shows that they're happier at work. It shows that they can be their authentic selves. So organizations are cottoning on to the fact that if they create spaces for people to be themselves, then the bottom line will be increased anyway. You know, we spend so much time at work. We spend so much time at work. It's one of those it's one of those things that if you're at work and you're not happy at work because you're hiding parts of who you are, it can affect your mental health, it can affect your well-being. It's just really challenging. So it's really important to be yourself. There are times where, unfortunately, you can't be yourself. You know, you have to hide who you are. For me, I've had to hide parts of who I am. It wasn't all the time that I was, you know, I'm a lesbian. It wasn't always time that I was out at work. And it was very challenging for me. I couldn't really focus on work as much because I'm always thinking about whether I'm going to be found out. Even those conversations on Monday morning when people say, you know, oh, how was your weekend? What did you get up to at the weekend? I would always be thinking, right, I need to overthink my answer. What am I going to say so that I don't out myself? So that I don't say me and my partner went here, there and everywhere and she did this and this and this. I would always have to be mindful that I can't be my authentic self because of certain environments that I worked in at the time. So wearing a mask then becomes something that you just do. You know, how many of you, type in the chat, how many of you have been in employments where you've had to wear a mask for your survival there? Yeah. Few people have said definitely been there. It was in my business manager job that I decided that I would wear braids. I would wear braids to work. Like I was the occupational health business manager. My hair was always straight. I always looked smart. I always like showed up just looking professional and stuff like that, because there's a thing about black hair and not being professional. And I remember going to my hairdressers, and my hairdresser, she used to put all sorts of chemicals in my hair to make it straight so that I'll be accepted at work, in the workplace. And she said to me that, you know, Andreena, your hair is breaking. We can't keep over processing your hair. I think it'll be good for you to wear a protective style. So wear your hair in braids. And it was a whole discussion. Like it took me ages to agree to this. Imagine my hair is falling out and breaking and I'm having to decide whether or not to wear a protective style that's going to be suitable, because I'm thinking that it's not going to be accepted at work. And that's because of certain microaggressions where Black women are often told at work, you know, oh, your hair looks better when it's straight. And I said to her, do you know what? I've thought about it and I'm going to brave it. I'm going to go into work with extension plaits. So she did my hair in extension plaits. And I remember walking to work that day and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous, yeah, because everyone always has something to say about hair, especially when you change your hair. And there was a few comments and things, but after a while, like nobody said anything. And I felt really comfortable. I felt comfortable just being myself. I feel like that was probably the start of me being my authentic self, like being able to wear my hair how I want and not how, you know, it's supposed to be accepted in the workplace. And Yeah, reflecting on that, I think that was probably a major part of the authenticity. Even coming out at work, it increased my confidence so much that I was like, do you know what? I'm not hiding parts of myself anymore. I'm gonna come out at work. And not only am I gonna come out, and at that time, you know, they had rainbow lanyards and all that. It was actually okay to come out at work at that time anyway. And yeah, it took me ages to wear a rainbow lanyard, but I did it. I did it anyway. And like looking back, I feel quite proud of myself because all of those parts of who I am were able to just be free. And yeah, so without waffling on too much, although I'm a lived experience speaker and that is my lived experience, it's important to make sure that who you are and your values align with the organization. And if it doesn't, it might be time to move on. I think it's important to recognize when it's time to find a place that is more suitable for you. But definitely for managers and people who lead teams, emotional intelligence and providing psychological safety is the key for people to bring their authentic self to work. And the more people that bring their authentic selves to work, is the better the organization is anyway for inclusion and belonging. And the more people just excel anyway, because they'll just feel more confident to be themselves. So part of, you know, my authenticity is about being out and proud. So I'm going to share a poem from my collection, Shard, with you right now. So this poem is called Proud with Pride. Be proud and stand your ground. Walk around and make your sound. Wear your colors and stand out for hours. Wave the various flags. Try not to worry. Find your tribe. You're in good company. Shelter from the hate. Fight with all your might for what is your human right. They will see. It's all love and light. In time, we will all be all right. Love who we love, marry who we marry. Don't apologize, no need to ever be sorry. We are who we are, just live and be happy. Thank you. That was from my literary collection, Shard, which is available in Waterstones, it's on Amazon, it's on Etsy, it's in various bookshops, London libraries. Yeah, someone in the chat said, I think it's really common for anyone LGBTQ+. Yeah, definitely. It has been. Many of us have had to hide who we are or wear a mask, and that's mainly through fear of discrimination. And also historically, LGBT people not being given opportunities and things like that. Even with the Equalities Act 2010, there's 9 protected characteristics, but if the organization they have their values and they say all the right things on their website, but then you go there and some of the staff have homophobic views or whatever, it can be quite difficult to be your authentic self at work. Someone in the chat said, I've had to play myself down as a Black man in management. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that completely. I've been there. I've been at my band 7 level. I've been, you know, I've turned up to well-being meetings and people are asking me if I'm in the right place. You know, they're not expecting a Black woman to be in the health and well-being meeting because it was like senior management people there. It's very challenging. And these challenges, they have an effect on our mental health. So here we are with some tips to being authentic at work. So self-awareness is really key. Self-awareness, like, you know, knowing who you are is really, really important. You know, self-awareness, understanding yourself and understanding your values and things are really key to being authentic at work. Don't be afraid to be yourself, you know, like organizations know that they need all types of people to make the organization better. And you'll be surprised like how many people will like even take me and my LGBT issues. Like when I decided to be out and proud and have visibility and representation at work, like lots of other people came to me and said, you know, oh, you're really brave coming out. I've been thinking about coming out too. So being yourself actually inspires other people. And, you know, it's okay. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to make mistakes, you know, it's okay to be vulnerable. Encourage productive discussions and network groups. If your organization doesn't have a body system on their induction program, suggest it, you know. Educational materials and events, like find out if your organizations have these forums, networks, groups and things. Find out what's happening, and if they're not happening, have a word with them to create it, or create it yourself. I know it can be a little bit of work on top of your work, but it also, there's lots of benefits to doing those extra things at work. Get to know your team members for real, you know. I've been watching some videos, this guy called Mike Robbins, and he talks a lot about authenticity. And one of the things that he suggests doing is doing like away days at work and stuff like that. But on the away days, there's a like a prompt that says, if you knew me well, you would know that. So let's type in the chat actually. If you knew me well, you would know that blah blah blah. So for me, I'll start then. If you knew me well, you would know that I didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in Jamaica. If you knew me well, you would know that I have 2 cats at home. They're called Kitty and Cookie. Feel free to type in the chat. Yeah, someone in the chat said, it's the intersectionality lenses that's not appreciated. People's bias present themselves, covert prejudice and discrimination, which in turn stops us from being our authentic selves. Yeah, that's true. I totally agree. I agree that in some organizations, the intersections of our identity, like intersectionality is about, like for me, my intersectionality is my gender, I'm a woman, my race, I'm Black, I'm a lesbian, that's my sexuality. And those intersections of who I am make up who I am, you know? Someone said, I can't stand discrimination, so I'm always the one speaking up no matter what, being more direct than the average British person. That's me. And I love that. That's proper allyship in action there. Speaking up. Yeah, I love that. Keep doing more of that. And the more you keep doing of that, you will encourage other people as well to speak up for people when they're not in the room. All right, are you thinking about this? If you knew me well, you would know that ... Do you want to type in the chat? Yeah, if you knew me well, you would know I'm a DJ. Yeah. That's good, because then even like, how could you even incorporate that at work? I don't know, if there was a work Christmas party or something, or a work do, if they knew that you were a DJ, you could potentially be like, oh, I can DJ for the party, and bring parts of who you are to work. If you knew me well, you would know that I'm rubbish on the stop, but very witty about 3 days after the fact. I think you're a poet there. I think you're a poet. You're a poet and you don't even know it. I always say, you know, for me to keep going, I practice a lot of self-care. And one of the things that I do for self-care is writing and journaling, because the times when I haven't been able to show up as my authentic self and not been able to express myself properly, writing was the only thing that would really help me. So I would just write, and often I wouldn't share what I've written with anyone, but that would really help me. I also practice positive affirmations. So when the world is not telling me how great I am, I practice telling myself how fantastic I am every single day. And speak kindly to myself. Someone else in the chat says, it's because this webinar is recorded, I'm not mentioning your names of who's saying what in the chat. But I am acknowledging you and I see you. Someone said, if you knew me well, you'd know that I'm actually an undercover comedian. Okay. I love funny people. Yeah, how could you bring your comedy to work? Like, especially during these challenging times of like working from home and stuff like that, people benefit from your comedy if you're funny, that is. If you knew me well, you'd know that I love sarcasm. Sarcasm's a little bit tricky sometimes. Some people just don't get it. If you knew me well, you'd know that I make the best brownies. Oh, I love that. There was a time at work where we were going through a transition period at work, and our team was quite diverse anyway. But I said, wouldn't it be nice if, one of the suggestions I made, I said, wouldn't it be nice if we all had if we all brought a dish to the next meeting, if we all made something at home or brought something in from the supermarket and brought it in to the meeting, but it has to be something that is from our own culture, like something that maybe other people in the meeting might not have tried before. And it worked out really well. It worked really well. Before we had that meeting, we all had our bits and bobs that we brought in. But we didn't say who brought in what, but everyone was allowed to access whatever food and drink was there. And it was really nice. It was really, really nice. So yeah, that's about getting to know your team members, getting to know people, and that does take a little bit of vulnerability, but you'll be surprised how much you have in common with other people. So thank you for taking part in that. Create opportunities to show up authentically. That's a good one. Embrace a growth mindset. So a growth mindset is about creating possibilities for progression and growth in the organization, and also having not having limiting self-beliefs as well. Like when I transitioned from doing admin to doing the band 7 job, I had negative self-talk. I had imposter syndrome at times, but I was like, do you know what? I deserve that. I am bright, you know, I've been through a lot, but I think had I not have gone through the challenges that I've gone through, I probably would have left school with lots of qualifications. You know, I'm very bright. And I embraced a growth mindset, which has really helped me today. Find out if there's opportunities for growth, and make sure that if you are in the learning and development team, make sure that all the people in the organization are being reached to be able to grow, not just the chosen few. Create a championship team. That's really important, because teams that get on really well and work well and are able to be authentic and be themselves are going to be more productive. They're going to be more happier at work. You know, I know I've said that before, but it's just something that I want to really drive home, that, you know, these tips will support you to being authentic at work, and it will support your well-being, your resilience, your productivity, and yeah, and be in spaces where, you know, your values are aligned with yourself. Like being myself the way I am now, although I feel slightly nervous even talking to you all about my authenticity, it's the freest I've ever been. Like, I feel really free now. And if I can encourage you to just show up as unapologetically as yourself, see how that works for you. And if it doesn't work for you in one organization, you have choice. Find another one. Because it's much better to be yourself than to keep on pretending to be someone else, you know, or wearing that mask all the time. It gets exhausting. It gets exhausting having to cover up parts of who you are. So thank you so much for listening. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. We might want to stop recording at this point, but you can feel free to ask me any questions that you like. Check out my website. It's www.andreena.co.uk. Book me to speak at your events or deliver a self-care writing workshop. And yeah, this is Q&A time, so feel free. I'm very open, so you can ask me whatever you like.